Welcome to Garden Grounds. We'll get started in like 30 seconds. And just real quick, will someone let me know that you can hear my voice and you can see my garden through the window? All right, let's get started. I'm going to pop out the chat. I'm going to assume you guys can hear me. Just waiting for confirmation on that. Today's Garden Grounds, I do this, well, first of all, I do this every second and fourth Thursday of the month, 11 a.m. on the East Coast. And I usually do a light theme. Today's light theme is going to be on root crops. And I answer just about any question, well, if I know the answer, any question on vegetable gardening. So just throw out your question. A lot of people come to this, so if I miss your question, please throw it back out into the chat. And just type question in front of your question. I know it's a lot of using the word question, but I can't pick it up unless I see a big question next to it. And I'm just going to go down the list and answer questions as we move along. I usually stay on 30 to 45 minutes. And again, this is my public event. I do this every second and third Thursday at 11 a.m. If you like, what I'm doing here, I also have perk memberships, and I do this same format 4 or 5 times a month in a private setting, about 20 or 30 people. I stay on for an hour and I answer all your garden questions. All right, so let's just get started with some questions, and then I'll talk about root crops shortly. Serena, who is a perk member, anybody who has a circle in the star are perk members. Have you ever used biochar, and if so, how did you like it? I have used it before, and I don't find it particularly valuable in the sense that I made my own. It was a cool process making it. I have a video on it if you look up biochar. It's really cool how you make it. But it didn't seem to add to the garden. It's a lot to do to cover a garden like my size, and it's just not needed. Usually what I find is if a garden is lacking an element or the soil just isn't right, and biochar may help bring something to it or help it hold moisture or pull in nutrients and hold it in, the carbon, maybe it has value, but I just never found it, to be particularly valuable. A lot of people swear by it. What I have found over time as I get older and my garden gets bigger, I'm trying to reduce the garden chores, but still, have a maximum harvest. And biochar and some other amendments and stuff like that are things I didn't need to do. It was fun, but I didn't need it. All right. And again, this gets pretty busy, so bear with me when I have to find out where I've left off here. Dorothy, when should I start tomatoes inside for Maryland Zone 7? Last year I started them on April 1st, but the burpee worker said that's too late. Well, the burpee worker is wrong. You can grow a tomato start. I started mine last week. You can start them now. You can start them April 1st. If you've been watching some of my videos, and I talk about this a lot actually in the perk memberships, a tomato plant started indoors, let it grow 4 weeks, 5 weeks. That is a fine size for a transplant, which will put us about May, first week of May, second week of May in Maryland. A lot of people think that if you plant the tomato plant mid-April, you get a bigger harvest versus putting that plant out May 15th. So April 15th, people try and get them out early here versus May 15th. The truth is a small plant, 4 or 5 weeks old, put into the garden, in mid-May with warm soil will grow extremely quickly, catch up to that plant from April 15th that you put out that's sitting in cold soil, that's shivering, and it may even be stronger. So that was a long way to answer your question. You can start them now. You can grow a tomato transplant that's only 4 or 5 weeks old. Just get it into warm soil. Skipping the colder soil, thinking you're late, sometimes does a benefit for you. So you have plenty of time. Zoso, when will you start squashing cucumbers in Maryland? So those are bigger plants. I still start a couple indoors, but I like direct seeding them because they germinate so quickly. I am going to target about the first week of May for getting them into the ground. We still might get a frost, maybe second week if you want to be safe. However, they can be protected. But I only like growing them indoors from germination about 3 weeks. I don't want them to get overgrown. So I won't really start these until around, April 7th or something like that. I like a short period for the cucumbers and squash. They mature really quickly. Again, you want to get them into warmer soil. But if you grow them 6-8 weeks indoors, they start to flower. It messes up their routine. They will produce, but they're kind of like bonsai plants. So they don't do as well. A smaller transplant, or a transplant that's only grown for a shorter amount of time, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I find is better for zucchini, squash, pumpkins, cantaloupe, watermelon. Priscilla, when can you transplant brassicas temperature-wise? So I've already transplanted mine, and we had a frost last night of 31 degrees. Frost still might roll in. I'm in Maryland. Now is a great time to put them out into the garden. So, they can take the cooler temperatures. They prefer cooler temperatures, and their leaves can actually freeze. So if you're not getting harsh, prolonged freezes, and you're just getting a night frost here and there, they're ready to go into the ground. And make sure you guys put question in front, although I see a question here maybe. Hardy edible flowers in the summer. I can tell you my favorite flowers to eat are daylilies. Not lilies. Lilies are poisonous, but daylilies. If you can't tell the difference, don't eat them. But I really like daylilies for edible flowers. Derek, also a new perk member, just put some onion transplants in the ground. Any advice and maintenance, and how do you store them after harvest? So I eat mine pretty quickly, so I don't store them, but I do have a drying rack that I set up. So you would want them to dry out of the sun, for a period of time. Depends on what you're growing. Some onions store better. Some sweet onions rot faster, so it just depends on what you're growing. No maintenance for really the ground plants. Anytime you're putting a transplant into the ground, and I know that you've done this because I think we talked about it, is you want to acclimate them from being indoors with no sun, no wind, no cold, slowly over 7 days outdoors so they get used to the sun and the temperatures and like that. Once you do that, you do want to keep them watered because they don't have root systems sometimes that are the best. So you're wanting to water them every other day for 10 or 14 days and just let them get established. Onions can get really beat up. Let me pause that here. So root crops, that's what I wanted to talk about. A lot of your root crops are cool weather crops. No, I just forgot them all. Radishes, carrots, parsnips, turnips, they can all go into the ground now. They can go outside when you still have a frost coming around. The seeds may take longer to germinate when the ground is cold, but you can get your first round in. So I've direct sown my carrots, my radishes. I didn't do parsnips this year. I didn't like them, so I'm not going to grow them. And turnips, I really like. Oh, and beets. Beets are a great one to get planted. They grow, they germinate a little bit more slowly when it's cold. As the days begin to warm into the 50s and 60s, that top couple of inches, 5 centimeters of the soil warms up, they germinate. And then my recommendation for like certain crops is don't put in 150 radishes now, even though you have the space, because then you have to eat 150 radishes at once. So you do them in succession. Maybe 50 radishes now, they germinate. After they've grown for about 2 weeks after germination, you put in another 50. And you can do that with other crops. Also potatoes. Potatoes are a great root crop. They can go into the ground now. You can sink them 4 or 5 inches, 10 to 15 centimeters into the earth. Let them grow. In 60 to 90 days, you have potatoes. I just did a potato video on growing in a pile of leaves or straw. I'm going to put it in the chat here. And that's a pretty cool video. This method, it's Ruth Stout method, if you're familiar with her method. I just modified it to use it in a kind of framed bed or a pen bed. But you just lay the potatoes on the ground. You cover them with 8-12 inches of leaves or straw. They kind of, fall, become less fluffy to about 8 inches over time. You maintain about 8 inches over the potatoes. They grow through the straw, and the potatoes actually form right on the surface of the ground that you put them on. The benefit of it is you get nice clean potatoes. It's not a lot of work to set up. You don't need additional soil to cover the potatoes. I really like how that works. So I have my potatoes in. I'm growing potatoes the method I just told you. I'm growing them in the earth in containers. I'm growing them in the earth in the ground. Growing more of what I really like, but I just did a bunch of potato videos. If you want to check those out. Misty, I appreciate the seed support and buying those seeds. Caroline, when should you first feed seedlings after they emerge and once you start doing your feeding every watering? So a seed, when it germinates, like when you're doing transplants, lives off the seed coat. So after germination, somewhere, it really, I don't know, 6-10 days, you can give them a light feed of water-soluble fertilizer. And sometimes you want to reduce the water-soluble quantity. Like for instance, if you're using the chemical types, which are safe to use, and I do recommend indoors, because you don't have microbes, you don't have life, you don't have anything going on, and they don't smell. They're like a 24, 8, 13 something NP and K. That's way too high. You want to really use a quarter strength dose. Try and bring the NP and K of the water soluble fertilizer that you're using well below a 5.55 NP and K. Just low. You can always add more. The reason being is your transplants are in these little cells. I don't think I have any here. And when they absorb the fertilizer in there, the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium in there, you can potentially over-concentrate the soil and damage your plants. So you want a low and steady feeding. So somewhere after 5 or 10 days after germination, when the plants are small, maybe I feed them lightly once a week. When they're bigger, they're at like 3, 4, 6 inches. I might be feeding them twice a week, but I'm always dosing them with a very low amount of water-soluble fertilizer. And if the plant's yellow, because you're just giving them a little bit, you know that it's not because you're overfeeding. Overfeeding can mimic underfeeding. But since you're just giving them a little and the plants are a little bit yellow, you just give them another dose of fertilizer. For carrots, so Tonya, for carrots, do you pollinate them when still cold? I'm going to guess that's meant to be, do you plant them when cold? And I do. I have carrots that already sprouted. They're about this tall. I just planted some more. They can go in the ground and still take a frost and freeze, but you're looking for the days to really be warmer. So when the sun is coming down, that top inch, 2.5 centimeters of the soil is warming up to 50, 60 degrees, and that just helps with germination. At night, a frost can roll in. Carrots are going to be fine. I have carrots that survived that I planted back in the fall. Same with spinach, by the way. And we got down to well below, 32 degrees, freezing, almost to zero, 8 degrees Fahrenheit. And these plants froze solid and they're okay. But carrots can take a frost. You can get them in the ground. Dorothy, is this the time to start wine cap mushrooms? Can I plant them along the edge of my beds on the wood chips? That's a really good question. And my wine caps that I planted years ago kind of petered out. I just ordered more like 2 days ago. So I'm, surprised to see this question. It's very appropriate. Yes, to answer your question, wine caps like wood chips to grow in. They like to grow through fresh straw. I am redoing my beds with exactly what you said, with wood chips. I'm going to add straw. I'm going to put them throughout my garden so they pop up in different places, but I have a mushroom growing area. Wine caps, they can take a frost and freeze. That's not really a worry. You just want to put them in a place where they can get, partial shade and they have moisture. The biggest problem sometimes with mushrooms is they don't get enough moisture. Stephanie, how can I tell if broccoli is bolting versus broccoli that is just growing ahead? Visually, when we go to the store, we get a nice green head of broccoli, and it's tight. It's just green. When a broccoli plant starts to bolt, that head will loosen up. All those little green kind of dots that form the little nice broccoli crown begin to grow and expand, and they start, they'll turn into yellow flowers usually. So you're going to see that head really loosen up. You can't miss it. If it's tight and it's really small and it's just kind of growing slow, that's what you want. If it all of a sudden loosens up and starts going upward, that's when it's starting to bolt. I have several tomato plants with 2 seedlings. Should I risk separate them or just snip one off? So if they're far apart, you can gently tease them apart. If the seeds are right next to each other and the roots got tangled and you try and pull them, it does damage them. However, you can kind of baby them back. If you don't need the plants, I would just snip it off and let that one grow stronger. So when we're doing root crops, a lot of them go in when the ground is cool. And if you've set up your beds, in the fall with some compost, you put down organic granular fertilizer. Maybe you saw my video on putting alfalfa pellets down. And the beds are, well fed. You don't really have to do much come spring. You could sprinkle down a little more organic granular fertilizer. You just want to loosen the soil to the top couple inches, 4 inches or so, 10 centimeters. Have a nice planting base. And then for these root crops and seeds, they should go right into the soil. They shouldn't go into mulch, wood mulch. They shouldn't go into any kind of thick mulch, just into the soil. Most important thing is to keep them watered. Even though it's cooler, when the sun is beating down on ground, it can, dry it out. So you do want to water them every couple of days until you see that they've, germinated, and then you can water a little bit less. What happens is the root goes down pretty far. So once you see a seed germinated above ground, it has a good root system. Keep them watered, let them establish. Don't worry about the frost. They can take that, and you will get your root crops in. Potatoes can go in now. Potatoes, I grow a second round. Sometimes towards the end of June, I replant them. I plant new potatoes. I just get them from the grocery store. It works. Crops that do well into the heat really are beets. I keep beets through the summer, and I just harvest them when I need them. Turnips will begin to flower, so you want to get them early. Radishes will get spicy, kind of hot, pithy, woody, so you need to harvest and eat your radishes before the heat rolls in. But I found that beets do pretty well through the summer, and I just harvest them at times. So I plant a lot of beets now and then harvest them really June into August. And I will plant some more again sometimes in August for a fall garden. We did that one. Priscilla, the soil in my raised bed really dropped over winter, but I have garlic in one half of it. Do I top off the other half with more soil, or wait until the garlic is harvested in July? So it depends on what you want to do with the bed. You want to wait for the garlic because you don't want to cover it up. So you're going to wait for that. The other half, yes, you could certainly raise it and set it up. If you were putting in plants that are going to be growing in there for the whole summer and harvesting, I would raise it now. But you could plant like radishes in there. You could do lettuce, spinach. You could do the cool weather crops, even peas, that if you plant them now, put like a tomato cage around them, they'll grow up the cage. They're going to be finished out towards the end of June. So you would be doing crops now when it's lower that are going to be finished when the garlic is done. And then you could just pull out the garlic, fix up the bed, and then you could plant your other crops. If you want to put tomatoes in or peppers in or something like that, whenever, towards the end of April, then yes, build the soil up where those plants are going and just worry about the other half later. Michelle, is it possible to make leaf mold with tough leaves, ones with lots of lignin like ficus? It is possible, and what she's talking about, like oak leaves are really thick, so they take a long time to break down. So when you have plants that have thick leaves, usually you want to chop them up and it makes a difference. But these tough leaves, these thick leaves like oak, can take 2 or 3 times as long to break down. Eventually they do, but they often get matted. You have to fluff them, and it's a little bit more work. But if you can, chop them up in a mower and, bag them and dump them, it makes it a little bit easier. Wanda, I'm in 6B in Southeast Kansas. Can I start beets under cardboard like carrots? I struggle to get any to come up. So I don't start carrots under cardboard before. And that was just the way, carrots, I actually put under the soil just a little bit. Keep them moist. All of mine came up. Started, I think that was early March that I put them in there. Just kept them well watered. I've tried using a cardboard before that helps keep the moisture in, and I missed the germination by like 2 days, and then they were all yellow, and I just said forget the cardboard. It was extra work. You could do that in theory with beets if that works for you. I don't know why you're struggling to get them to grow. I mean, you can also plant them later. Like I was just saying, they actually grow through the warm season. So I would just try a group now, whatever method you want. Try another group in like 2 or 3 weeks, another group in 2 or 3 weeks, after that. And then maybe that helps you get the timing down. Just as long as you have fresh seed, you're good to go. But you can certainly do the cardboard method. You just have to catch them. Like if they germinate into the darkness of the cardboard, they're going to keep growing, thinking they have to break the surface of the soil, and you get very leggy yellow plants. All right, let me find out where I left off. Where are we at? So we're at 11:21. We'll go for at least another 10 minutes. Best tomato in these awful summers of Zone 7. I like the Homestead variety. I sell that at my seed shop. If you need seeds, here's the plug for the shop. $1.75 a pack for tomato and pepper seeds. All other seeds are $1.50. Let me put that in here. That's just the rustedgarden.com. And I like the Homestead. I grow just about, not all the seeds that are in my shop, that'd be too many, but what I grow here comes from the seed shop. They do pretty well in the heat, but if you want one variety, I recommend the Homestead. All right, so over here, another root crop is sweet potatoes. This is basil, by the way, that I grew indoors, and I just took cuttings back in a video a while back, put them in water, they root out. I can go plant these outside. But this is a sweet potato slip, and it's not quite ready, but you want to grow these, get them into water, and you want the roots to be really, I don't know, at least twice as long, maybe even 3 times as long as this. So once they go into water, the sweet potato, another root crop, takes probably a good 2 to 3 weeks to get a nice root system, maybe a little bit longer. Let me put this over here. These are my sweet potatoes that I just put in soil. There's a video on that from this year. And this is a slip. This one got really big. I was away for the weekend. But you would just break these off. That's a little big. I would go up to this, to about here. And then I would just put this into water by a sunny window, and it will root out, and then I will be able to go and plant sweet potatoes. Put that in the water now. Yeah, I went away this weekend to my daughters. I helped them build a fence. I will be putting a video out on the basics, not super detailed, on building a fence to keep dogs out. Planted up her garden with cool weather crops. Did some other builds, and those videos will be out over the next week. All right, so just finding where we are. Okay, so again, this is Garden Grounds. I do this every second and fourth Thursday of the month at 11 a.m. This is a public Q&A where I do a light topic. If you like this, please check out perk memberships. I do this 4 or 5 times for the lower tier of the perk memberships. It's about 20 or 30 people. I stay on for an hour. We talk about gardening. I answer questions. People in the chat answer questions. They're very knowledgeable. And it's just a way to sort of have a mentor in myself, but also as a group that helps you, with what you're doing in the garden. And we do that 4 or 5 times a month. Make sure you throw question in front of your question. If I've missed it, please put it out again. Here's one that I just caught. If I'm leaving for 5 days, can I leave my plant starts under grow lights and just water them and leave them in some extra water? For 5 days, you could probably leave some extra water. You do want your grow lights to be on a timer. They really need an off period. I use a timer. It makes life so much easier. A little extra water would be okay. When can I transplant sugar snap peas in 7B? Now, I've planted a lot of my peas direct this year. About 3 weeks ago, they're all up. They can take the frost and freeze. You do need to make sure you acclimate anything that's grown indoors to the sun outside. I have onion seedlings. When can I transplant them into the ground in 6B? They can take a freeze and a frost too. So they technically could go out now, and they're going to get beat up if they're indoors. Like my onions are like this tall. They look beautiful. When you go outside, again, they need to be acclimated, but they're going to get beat up. As long as the root system survives and the little tip above the root survives, your onions are going to be fine. So you could think about it now. We get, frost maybe once every 7 days now. If you're getting frost every other day or something, maybe wait a little bit longer, but you're very close to being able to get them out there. Rob, I appreciate the seed support and the shout that they're germinating wonderfully. And if you buy stuff from us, my brother helps me with the seed shop. If there's ever an issue for that first year with germination, just send us a message and we'll refund you, or we'll send you seeds back. Brandon, good morning. Hope you are doing well. I am. It's a great, 58 degrees. I consider it a great day because it's been so cold here. So I'll be going outside as soon as I'm done here. Is now a good time to direct seed Swiss chard and peas? Are potatoes good to plant now? Again, I'm in Maryland Zone 7. I'm not sure where you're at. But if it's similar, even if it's a little bit colder, yes. Potatoes can go in the ground now. Peas can go in the ground. Mine are up. We had a frost last night. They're perfectly fine. And Swiss chard can go into the ground. Testing. Should I transplant lettuce and mizuna that can have leaves harvested or keep inside? Zone 6B. Remove leaves before planting. So when you take, first of all, any leafy green that you're growing inside, when you put it outside, those leaves are just used to a cushy life. And they're probably going to wilt and not look the best. But right out of the center of your leafy green, you're going to see all these short, stocky leaves coming out. They're accustomed to the colder weather out there. So that's probably what you're going to be harvesting. So don't worry about the leaves going from inside going outside. In 6B, I don't know the zones that well, but you're pretty close to having them go out. I think they could probably go out now. The best way to do this too is, if you have questions, is to put some out now. Keep journals and just track what you're doing year to year, and then you can go back to your notes and you can figure out the perfect time. Because just because I'm 7A and you're 6B, 7A extends all the way out to Tennessee. And the frosts are different and the frequency of frosts are different. So it's not always a perfect way to decide when to plant. But all these leafy greens can freeze and be okay. All right. Can potatoes grow in 10-gallon bags? Yep, I grow potatoes in 10-gallon bags. If you pack them in, like if you put in 4 more potatoes, well, let me rephrase. We'll do this part as the root thing today, or the light topic for roots. Potatoes generally stay small because we underfeed and we underwater. Their whole goal is to create the potato tuber and store energy. So if you pack things into a small container, you're going to get smaller potatoes, but you're going to have to water and feed them more. If you don't do that, you're not going to get a good harvest. So that's just a long way of saying you can pack stuff into a 10-gallon container. You could just put 2 seed potatoes. They might get bigger. But whatever you're putting in there, it's more about the frequency of watering and the frequency of feeding to keep them at their best so that they actually produce for you. And I have, the video I just did on potatoes talks about the feeding and fertilizing. And if you have more than, say, 1 10-gallon grow bag, I would put 2 seed potatoes in one and maybe 4 in the other. Feed and water them the same way and see which ones you like. I like, in the containers, the smaller potatoes because I leave them in the bags usually, and I just pull them out when green beans are ready and eat them that way. I steam them together. Dorothy, how tall should cabbage and lettuce plants be before planting? I've been growing them outside in pots and bringing in at night. So, they don't have to be a certain size, but if they're at the 6 weeks of growing and they have a nice root system, and if their lettuce is this small or this big, you can plant it. Usually something like that with a nice root system is ready to go outside. But you don't want to overgrow these indoors. They're getting used to the colder days, so you're not growing them indoors. So they might be shorter anyway. But I would go with more with from germination. If it's been about 6 weeks, they're ready to go out. Travis, what are your thoughts on topping transplant pepper plants? I'm in New York, small growing season. Would I get a better yield not topping? Yes, that's the main thing. If you top a plant, it slows down the growth, and yes, it can get bushier and stronger, but I have a long growing season. I don't top mine anymore anyway. It was just extra work. I found certain plants like bell peppers don't like to be topped. Super hot peppers tend to just grow more slowly, so I don't top those. Other plants, it did help create a bushier plant, but overall, it didn't make that much of a difference. So I would go with the short growing season, get your peppers started early indoors, just let them grow, and it's better that way. And the point really is like if you're growing them and topping them does work, and I used to do that, and the plants would be stockier and I would get more production. But if I plant 3 banana pepper plants, I don't top them, that's plenty of peppers. If I top them, maybe there's a little bit of delay, maybe I get more, but I just don't need them all. So it's possible with your garden size that you can just put the plants in there, let them go, and you don't need to do topping, and you get plenty of plants, or plenty of peppers. Misty, what are the best steps to growing onions? I started from seeds indoors. They look okay. I get too excited and seem to stay everything about 4 weeks too soon. I'm not sure about the last part, but your onions are doing well. I like to keep them indoors 8 weeks from germination. Make sure you're watering regularly, giving them that water-soluble fertilizer. My onions are about this tall. They're ready to go outside. When I take them outside, they're going to get beat up and they're going to look terrible. But keep them watered. Water them every other day. Don't let them dry out. The roots will establish, new green will come up, and you should be fine. How many sweet potato slips can I fit in a 15-gallon grow bag? I tend to overplant. It depends on the variety too, but I really wouldn't go past 3 at the most. It's gonna be about watering and feeding, but they can grow really big, and if you put in too many plants, you're just gonna have small sweet potatoes. With fewer plants in there, it's gonna have a nice root system, and you'll get bigger sweet potatoes. But I wouldn't, go past 3. Annette, how long should you harden off cold weather starts? That's always a tough question. I say a week. It can be a little bit less. If it's cloudy for that whole week, you can leave them out longer and they acclimate quicker. If it's a clear blue sky, that sun in half an hour can damage the leaves. So slowly over, 5 to 7 days. All right, let's see. Got to find where I left off here. And cheers to David Martin. He just became a gold level perk member. Now we are at 11:35. I'm going to stay on to 11:45. I mean, once I start talking, I really enjoy this, but we got to keep it at 45 minutes. All right, here we go. Old Dominion. I just read that some home fertilizers contain sewage and waste biosolids that can contain PFAS, forever chemicals. Are we in big trouble? There are at least 9 browns. So I don't know. There is so much. Where did this come from? There is so much competition from companies to scare you to buy their products or not buy their products. Fertilizers, be it organic, made by people, they're all chemicals. They're not going to harm you or the plants or the soil. Now, if there are fertilizers coming from sewage that have other chemicals in there from like medications and stuff like that, I really don't know if those compounds survive the process. A lot of times the sewage is heated and taken care of and things are destroyed. So I can't be the source for you to say, yes, it's safe. In that case, if you're concerned about it, I would just go with organic fertilizers, which are basically animal products, or the chemical fertilizers. They're not going to really sway how your garden grows. What does sway it is compost. Compost is well below a 111 NP and K. The soil needs compost, organic matter, the plants need it, everything needs it. You can't really have great soil just by using organic fertilizer. Just because it's called organic, if you're not adding compost, you're not building the best soil. If you're using the chemical fertilizers, which people can use on a budget, maybe you're growing food to help your family, you have a limited budget. That is not going to really harm the soil if you're adding compost in it. The bottom line comes down to compost, yet we all can't make it and we all don't have easy access to it. Probably I'll do a whole thing on fertilizers, but a lot of that are company games trying to get you to spend your money on them. With the bottom line being, just to clarify my point, is if you're using compost regularly, you can really use whatever fertilizer you want. Your soil is going to be great. So I would wait till maybe your lettuce and cabbage is about 2 inches. Let's just answer that. So I do have some birds that dig in my garden. I have bird feeders everywhere. I have probably hundreds of birds that come through here. It really depends on the species of bird that you get. So lucky for me, they don't dig a lot in my garden. If they are, I get these drying racks from like thrift stores, and I cover my seedlings with that. And that's worked in the past when I've gardened in different places. When are your sweet potatoes, when are you going to plant your sweet potatoes? Sweet potatoes like the warmth. These were just started really early for video reasons. They really won't go out until like May 1st or later. Putting them out early isn't going to do anything. They're just going to sit there. So you really want warm soil. All right, where are we at? 6 minutes left. So just a quick recap too. Here's the potato video I just did. It's on growing potatoes in beds of straw and leaves, and it's a great way to grow potatoes. This is, hold on. This is Garden Grounds. I do this live public event every second and fourth Thursday at 11 a.m. Light topic about gardening, and then I will answer as many questions as I can in about 30 or 45 minutes. If you like this format, I have perk memberships Just look for the join button next to any of my videos or in the video description. And I do this format 4 or 5 times a month on the perk memberships for an hour. And it's about 20 or 30 people, and we just talk about gardening. Winter, welcome. Thank you for subbing. KT, I appreciate that. All right. So we're going to run out of time, but I need the question in front. But I saw Cooking with Rod. I have bacterial leaf wilt problem in my container garden. What can I do to get rid of it? So if you truly have a bacterial wilt, it's usually spread by insects. It's really hard to get rid of. I don't know of a cure that I can give you now. I don't think there is one. Usually people get rid of the plants. Sometimes and I'm not sure it's 100% leaf spot or not, if it's viral, people get rid of the soil, it can be a real problem. But I don't have an answer for you, and I would try and do some more research on it just so, you're not losing more plants and you're not, over panicking and getting rid of all your soil. Question, do I have to acclimate lettuce to any plant grown indoors? 100% has to be acclimated to the outdoors. Like today, it's really sunny. If I took even these sweet potatoes, if they had roots, even though they're by the window, put them outside, they would get damaged. If I went under my grow lights, took my lettuces, put them out now, they stayed out for 8 hours today because I planted them, really early. The sun will kill them. You can get some leaf damage, but if the stem and where the roots, meet, get damaged by the UV rays of the sun, the plant is dead. Any advice on getting my blueberries going? Give them a huge drink in a container of water-soluble fertilizer. Blueberries, even if they've been growing in there fine every year, that's great. They also do like lower acidity. So in this case, Miracle Grow Acid, Mere Acid, if you don't like that company, another acidic water soluble is great for blueberries. The acidity, lower pH helps them absorb nutrients better. But I'd give them a big shot of water soluble. Any fruit plant, anything in containers that overwintered, now is really time for a water soluble feed. There are little white sticky balls on my pepper plants that make the leaves super sticky. I remove them and the next day they're back. Someone said aphids, but these things don't move. They're probably spider mites. A lot of times it's in the joints. You're going to need a spray to control it. I would use any spray, chemical or not. It's not going to hurt your plants as seedlings. Go back to your organic ways when you're outside. But I would look for a spray to spray the plant and kill them. Should you put fertilizer on lettuce? I would give it a water-soluble drink. I mean, it's mostly leaves. So if you're giving it some nitrogen, water-soluble form, that's going to help the lettuce take off. All right, 2 minutes left. Does granular organic fertilizer wash out after heavy rain in fabric pots? No, it doesn't. A lot of stuff gets locked in there. You need a tremendous amount of flushing to remove water-soluble fertilizer. The organic granular will be in there. Are Red Norlands, Gold Rush, Adirondack Blue Potatoes all determinate? Don't know. Red Norland is. I would guess that they all are. I have read that Adirondack Blues are determinate, but sometimes, one place will say they're indeterminate. I'm not sure about Gold Rush. If so, can they be planted just below the soil surface, or should they be planted deeper in a grow bag? They all can be planted 4 to 6 inches deep, and you're still going to get potatoes, no matter what variety they are. K. I planted strawberry roots like 2 weeks ago. Nothing has happened. I live in 9B. How can I get them going? Should I add something in my grow bag? You can't really get them going. Hopefully they were alive. Sometimes you buy roots and they're dried out and they're dead. Just in case, the crown where the roots come out has to be slightly poking out of the surface. You don't want to bury that. So if you did that, All you could really do now is give them a water-soluble fertilizer. Any one is fine. That's plenty of nitrogen, one shot, and then just hope for the best. And if they're alive, they're going to grow. What do you feed your potatoes? And what do you feed your potatoes? So I set my beds up. If you watch any of my potato videos, you'll show details on how I feed them. Last year I used more higher phosphate and more potassium. This year I'm using more just organic granular and just loading it into the space and mixing it through. I'll be watering them more this year with water-soluble fertilizer. So my point being is you want to set the ground up with a good amount of any dry fertilizer. Could be chemical, could be organic, whatever. Mix it through well. That'll break down. That'll slowly feed the plants. But I'm going to be hitting my plants more this year with a water-soluble fertilizer, probably when they're, to size out of the ground, 2 times a month, maybe a little bit more, because they are such heavy feeders. And my goal this year is to have really large potato harvests. So that's how I'm doing it. Oh, we are done, actually. I'm going to go to the bottom. And we'll go to Nancy's question. I was busy up potting in my basement. Will I be able to watch this video later? Oh, well, thank you for being a perk member. And yes, this will be recorded so you can watch the video from the beginning. So 11:45, I have to end. I will see you guys next time. I will put up April's. What month are we in? March, April. Yeah, so April's Garden Grounds will be uploaded to YouTube. You should get an email or something telling you that it's ready to go. So I will see you guys all next time. Just checking real quick. All right, so I have to get out of here. See you next. Why am I struggling so much? It's because I don't have my list here that have the dates, so I'm trying to pull them out of my head. Anyway, let's just start over. I will see you guys next time for Garden Grounds. Have a great weekend.